or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So, today, we've got a look at a new Pokemon VMAX. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Turns out, Scizor is getting a VMAX. Now, we did, of course, have a look at Scizor V a couple of weeks ago. In fact, exactly 2 weeks ago. I will pop a link to that video in the description. But for now, we get to have a look at Scizor VMAX, and, you know, could be kind of fun. Now, starting off with the basics, we got 320 HP, which is honestly fairly standard for a Pokemon VMAX. It's right there with Dragapult, for instance, so not particularly amazingly high, but certainly not terribly low. We've got a retreat cost of 2, which means Air Balloon will give free retreat, which is always quite nice. We've got a resistance to grass, which will help if those pesky Rillaboom decks ever start being really good. As for now, very much fringe decks. We've got a weakness to fire, which kind of sucks. Well, the decks are big right now, and it's not even necessarily Reshiram and Charizard. There's a whole bunch of really good fire Pokemon around at the moment, and Welder is just helping all of them be significantly better. It's not a weakness I cherish in 2020, put it that way. As for being a metal Pokemon, good. I mean, you're not hitting anything good for weakness, because anything you would be hitting for weakness, Zacian is already scaring away from the format. But you do have Metal Saucer to accelerate a little bit of energy. For a very brief period, Metal Frying Pan to reduce damage and take away your weakness. But then when that goes away, Metal Goggles to reduce damage and prevent damage counters. Plus, of course, Lucario and Melmetal, which has got a GX attack that says for the rest of the game, all of your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks. So, yeah, it's quite nice being a metal Pokemon. But what does it actually do? Well, our translation, and this might shock you to your very core to hear, comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet. I know, who could possibly have seen that coming? And if we start off with the first attack here, 1 metal, 1 colorless energy, 90 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. It's a very standard metal Pokemon attack nowadays. It's a tanky attack. The goal here is to try and make sure that you are just not taking enough damage to particularly be in any danger, shall we say, moving forward. And as a metal Pokemon, this works. There are plenty of cards we've got. I mean, I've just named a few, but if we start going through them, we can see how this really adds up. So let's take the easy example. Let's say you've attacked for 2 energy, bearing in mind Metal Saucer makes those 2 energy extremely easy to pay. And you've got a Metal Frying Pan on, so reducing damage done to you by 30. And you've used Lucario and Melmetal's GX attack, which a lot of the time, early doors, you will be in a metal deck. Then all of a sudden, you're taking 90 less damage from attacks. So, you got 320 HP, no weakness, and you're taking 90 less damage from attacks. Believe me when I say this is going to add up very, very quickly here. Like, really quickly. And this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that's basically the goal with Scizor here. You whack Scizor in the active, and you just sit there tanking, and your opponent is just struggling to get a one-hit KO. I mean, you use this attack, right? And in order for your opponent to get a one-hit KO, they've got to do 410 damage. 410 damage! It's possible. Obviously, it's possible. But if we look at something like a Blacephalon, again, this is dependent on you having a Metal Frying Pan, or I suppose having a Weakness Guard energy, something to take away your weakness. Then 8 energy discarded from hand won't get a KO. They will need a 9th energy. That's ludicrous, ladies and gentlemen. That is absolutely ludicrous. It's also weirdly similar to Copperajah V. You see, Copperajah V has an attack for 3 energy that does 90 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, you take 30 less from attacks. Now, I love me some Copperajah. You know that by now. I have not made any secret of that. However, it's a third energy. And that third energy is a big deal. Getting one Metal Saucer really is not a particularly big deal. Getting two Metal Saucer is significantly more difficult. Not saying it's not going to happen, but I am saying it's significantly more difficult. So now all of a sudden, we're actually looking at a better Copperajah. Now, the good news is you do have an extra 100 HP. The bad news is you are giving up an extra prize. Copperajah VMAX, for what it's worth, does not have one of these tanky attacks. It's got 20 more HP, but it doesn't have a tanky attack. And in that regard, I think I prefer Scizor to Copperajah, which is ludicrous, right? Copperajah is your big, no, you can't KO this boy. And yet in comes Scizor just being like, yeah, mate, I got 320 HP, I'm taking 90 less from attacks. Oh, yeah, and I got no weakness. It is worth pointing out that nowadays we have had Tool Scrapper reprinted, so there is every possibility your opponent just gets rid of Tool Scrapper and then goes and gets a KO using weakness. But this is... I mean, put it this way, right? Let's take a look at some of the big Pokemon in the format and see how close they're actually getting here. So let's take something like Zacian, right? Zacian comes in hitting for 230 damage. That seems like a lot, and it is a lot. But if you're reducing damage done to you by 90, that 230 actually becomes 140, which means they're 40 damage away from getting a 2-hit KO. 40 damage away from a 2-hit KO. Oh. Take something like Eternatus, does 30 damage for each Darkness Pokemon you've got in play. The ability is a Sky Field as long as you've only got Darkness Pokemon, i.e. you can have 8 bench Pokemon. So they're hitting 270, but if you're taking 90 less from attacks, then they're only actually hitting 180, and that 180 will get a 2-hit KO, but if you can heal 50 damage, then all of a sudden that 360 they should get from 2 attacks actually comes down to 310, and all of a sudden that's not a KO. And all you need is like a Pokemon Center Lady, right? Pokemon Center Lady will heal 60. There's a million other ways to do it. That's just an example. So, yeah. This is an extremely difficult Pokemon to KO. When the rotation hits, the fact that you're going to lose Metal Frying Pan kind of sucks. But then again, the attack is 1 metal, 1 colorless energy. So use Weakness Guard energy and a single Metal Saucer. You're attaching 1 energy from hand anyway, why not a Weakness Guard energy? And then this becomes just a ludicrously difficult Pokemon to KO. I mean, something like Pikachu and Zekrom's doing 150 damage, that's actually being reduced down to 60, and they're not 5-hit KOing. Anything that's hitting damage around the Pikachu and Zekrom is just... they're just not KOing. They're just not getting enough damage. And obviously you'll play a little bit of healing here and you'll be fine. The second attack, incidentally, is not particularly great. It's not particularly terrible. Free energy, 190 damage. And 190 damage is good. You'll be getting most Pokemon V. You'll be getting a lot of relevant GXs. You'll be getting Dedenne, which a lot of people are playing, even though it's got a resistance to metal. You'll be getting Crobat V, which a lot of people are going to be playing. You're not doing a huge amount of damage here, but you're doing all right. But the thing is, you're not putting free energy onto a Scizor and coming out to smash. That's not the point here. That's not what you're doing with Scizor. You're putting 2 energy on, and you're tanking with a little bit of healing. And then when you really need to, you're adding a third energy and hitting 190. So if you've already used the first attack, then this second attack does kind of a minimum 280, and 280 will be something like ADP. Basically all relevant tag teams. You attack twice with the first attack, and then you hit the second attack. That's 180 plus 190, that's 370, that's literally everything. And I've already said how tanky you get using the first attack. So the second attack is fine. And there will be those games, right, where you attach an energy and have a Sizzle turn 1. And then turn 2, you VMAX Energy Metal Saucer, and then you hit 190, and you are doing really big damage really quickly. There will legitimately be those games where this attack wins you a super quick game because your opponent hasn't gotten set up, and I really like that. That's why I like this second attack. In games where your opponent doesn't get rolling quickly, you can use this to basically take quick wins and punish them for a slow start. I don't think it's an attack around which you're really going to build a deck, but I absolutely do think it's an attack that is either good when your opponent isn't getting set up, or is good when you've tanked for a little bit and then you need to really get some damage done. But make no mistake about it, I adore the first attack. It's Copperajah V's first attack, but for less energy on a Pokemon with 100 extra HP. And you give up an extra prize, but the whole point of having to have 410 damage dealt in order to be KO'd is your opponent isn't KOing you. And if you start playing around with stuff like Super Scoop Up, then it kind of gets really funny. You got to flip heads, but when you do flip heads, it gets really funny. Although as it stands at the moment, Super Scoop Up will be rotating in August/September, but I don't think that's going to stick, incidentally. I think it'll be reprinted. It usually is. We've had 13 different prints of it since, well, it came out in Neo Genesis, and we had very similar things before that. I think it seems fair to think it's going to be coming back at some point soon. Now, as a quick reminder about Scizor V, free energy 140 is not particularly impressive, but 1 metal energy, 30 damage, discard all Pokemon tools and all special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. It's a very situational card, which is going to be really good in some matchups and fairly useless in others. But bearing in mind, if you're playing this primarily for the VMAX, which I really think you should be playing this primarily for the VMAX, then this is just a phenomenal bonus, which can absolutely save you in some games, can absolutely wreck particular decks that are trying to pile special energy on or really rely on tools. And in other games, you just ignore it because it doesn't matter because the VMAX is awesome. I'm giving a VMAX between 4 and 5 Wassies, and I know that's an incredibly high score. Oh, we don't give half Wassies. Obviously, that would be barbaric. We all know that by now. Yes, it's an extremely high score, but I'm giving it an extremely high score because this is an extremely difficult Pokemon to KO, and I've not even mentioned Metal Core Barrier yet, which is a 1-turn takes 70 less damage from attacks. Yeah, that's giving you an effective HP, assuming you've used Lucario and Melmetal, which I'm hoping you have at this stage, of 450. That's just dumb. But I want to know if you agree with me. I want to know if you're as high on Scizor as I am, or whether you think I'm being a little bit over the top. So go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are extremely fun and definitely worth your time nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.